announcer. I have serious news to pass on to everybody. What I'm about to say could mean the world's disaster. Yeah. Could change in joy and laughter to tears and pain. Know that love's in need of love today. Don't delay. Send yours in right away. To know that hate's going round, breaking hearts. So stop it, please, before it's gone too far. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh, ooh, ooh,
Can I go do lift every voice for me?
She won't lift that. Do that for Donna.
Anything for Donna. Anything for Donna.
There you go.
You do it for Malcom.
All right, let's do it. Yes, please stand.
If we don't sing it,
Please stand.
The Black National Anthem.
The Black National Anthem.
I love it when we come together, y'all. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening sky. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Hey, MBK for life.
Follow us on social media. 2BYG everything. 2B Young and Gifted. We love y'all and enjoy the program.
All right. Proud of y'all, bro.
They're on good behavior, y'all. Y'all should see them in intimate things. They grew up in the bookstore, so yes, they did.
What Kwame did.
So, Dr. Kendi, I'm going to ask you to come to the stage. I know we. Going to have you grab your mic and test your mic and just make
My
sure
mic sounds nice. Check one.
Yeah.
My mic? Oh, you know it too. Oh, I didn't do that.
Did I mess up something?
Yeah, you did. Okay, try again now. Look this way, y'all. Y'all ready?
Testing. Testing. 1, 2.
There you go.
10, 9, 8, 7,
That's right.
6, 5,
4, 3, 2.
All right.
Yes, ma'am, it's working.
Okay, I am going to turn it over to this amazing panel. Please enjoy the conversation. Thank you very much.
All right, good evening, everyone. Whatever we had planned is just out the window now, so we done had everything. I'm so excited to be here today for this conversation. We have a little thing we're gonna do. Before I get started, I just have to say this. It's nothing like being a part of a family.
That's right.
Because with this family reunion, you never know what you're gonna get. You have everything planned, but when family come in and what they say, go, go, go.
All right.
So I am so excited to be here today. So we're gonna go ahead and get started because I don't want to throw my co-dependent off with my adding a little extra stuff to it. All right, so today we're here to celebrate what have been Malcolm X 100th birthday, May the 19th, 1925. Malcolm Little was born, who later changed his surname to X. It is such an honor to be here to discuss the book Malcolm Lives, the official biography of Malcolm X for young readers. In a recent interview with ABC News, Lindsay Davis spoke with New York Times best-selling author Dr. Kendi. Yeah, he's my friend. He just don't know it yet. About his new book, Malcolm Lives. In the official biography, during the interview, it was noted that although many cities have a street named Malcolm X, it may be uncertain if the youth know that the street named Malcolm X is a person or why there is a street named after him.
I'll be honest, Dr. Kendi. Preparing for this interview, I did question my parents as to who Malcolm X was, and while we are still learning about him almost 60 years after his death. Well, as I read Malcolm Lives, I was inspired by Malcolm's courage and confidence and the fact that he was bold enough to jump into the movement as his parents were involved in largest garden meetings.
Well, Taylor, what do know? We're here to have we didn't forget about you. We're here to have a conversation with the author, Dr. Kendi, who is the author of Malcolm Lives. This is his first solo children's book, though he's no stranger to writing acclaimed books about anti-racism for young readers, which we have already discussed all his books, and also they're on display. We also have them available in the bookstore to pick up. So if you want to get all his entire collection, we have them available here at the store. So do make sure you purchase the books. I got you. All right. So we're going to go ahead. So Tyler, girl, let me tell y'all something about this name.
Tyler.
He came to the school. We practiced his practice. His mom was a journalism. She even, sounded out phonics and everything. They got big old T-A-Y, but I keep putting this T-Y. Mom, I'm sorry. I do apologize for keep pronouncing your son's name incorrectly. So for the rest of the night, his name is T, okay?
T.
All right, so T, go ahead and go start. We're going to let you talk. We got you. All right, so T, go ahead and get started with your first question, please.
Welcome, Dr. Kendi. It is an honor to have an award-winning author here to learn about Malcolm X. Dr. Kendi, how is your approach to writing this book the same or different from your other works?
Good question.
Yes, you may speak.
I just want to make sure. Well, first, I just want to thank each of you for willingness to be in conversation with me. I want to thank all of you for coming out this evening to celebrate Malcolm's 100th birthday. People all over the world are celebrating this birthday, and I'm so glad to be here celebrating it with you here in Dallas at a bookstore.
No, I'm sorry.
I should say
Fort Worth. I'm from Dallas, so I know.
11th biggest city.
So I just want to make sure y'all paying attention.
Oh, yeah.
Because I literally would post on social media, I'm being Dallas, and all the Fort Worth people were like, no, you're going to be in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
I'm here, y'all do. But it's also truly an honor to be here in this bookstore.
That's right.
Owned by two sisters.
That's
who,
right.
Of course, are from Omaha.
That's right.
Where Malcolm was born.
That's right. That's right.
But also, I think that Malcolm is well known for being this minister who led a congregation in Harlem.
Right.
And at the time Malcolm was alive, Harlem was considered the center of Black America.
That's right.
But now
Hello,
the center
brother.
of Black America has actually shifted.
Okay.
And there's more Black people in the state of Texas
Yes.
than any other state in the
That's a
country.
fact.
And frankly, in many ways, this area is becoming one of the centers, if not the center, of Black America. And
That's
so
right.
again, to be here in community with each of you is truly an honor, and also to be here with my family.
That's right.
And my cousin Nikki, my cousin Phil, my cousin Jean, my cousin BJ, and of course my aunt Jeanette. So I actually have more family in this area.
And I'm your cousin too.
When I first met him, my first words was, "This is a family reunion." He brought his whole family.
So again, I'm just truly honored to be with here with you. So to your question, I wanted this book to be written in scenes. I really wanted the reader to be able to literally almost stand over Malcolm's shoulder and be able to see what he was doing in particular moments, what he was seeing, what he was potentially feeling and thinking, he was dialoguing with. So the book is largely written in scenes. And I think that's different than other biographies that have been written on Malcolm X. Part of the reason why I wrote it in scenes is because since this is a book for young readers, and since I'm competing with YouTube and Netflix and even fiction, right? I thought it was critically important to ensure that it was engaging as possible. And also, frankly, I think we learn more about people to see how they moved in particular critical moments in their life than sort of talking about them more in the abstract. So that's one of the ways it's pretty distinct from other biographies.
Thank you for
All
sharing.
right, thank you. I'm gonna kind of go back on a little bit what you just mentioned. So you also acknowledged that Malcolm was fallen, as any human being naturally is. Why did you feel like that it was important to include in the story, especially for the young audience?
So for me, I don't really, I think oftentimes when we provide biographies to young people, and frankly, even to adults, of people we want them to admire, we tend to provide them with biographies of these human beings as almost like superheroes.
That's true.
Yeah. Like they're perfect. They've never done anything wrong. They've only done great things. And it is hard for human beings who are deeply flawed and imperfect. We make mistakes constantly. We regret things. To relate to those people, to see themselves in those people. And I thought it was critically important for people reading this book to see themselves in Malcolm's greatness. And so part of the way in which potentially people able to see that is because they can see, you know what? Malcolm made mistakes too.
That's right.
Malcolm had a series of things that he did that he regretted. Malcolm was constantly thinking differently. And I just think that's more going to be more likely to capture people. And I think that's going to be more likely to inspire people.
Were there any challenges that came up as you were developing this project?
Yes. I think the biggest challenge is I have a tremendous amount of respect for the brilliance of readers. And so the challenge was, how can I clarify these incredibly complex ideas, for instance, maybe that Malcolm was expressing, or conditions that Malcolm was facing, or internal politics within the United States or within his mosque or the Nation of Islam, or Islam more broadly, that Malcolm was trying to maneuver in a way that people can understand. And so it was so my job as a writer is to really translate and to sort of describe moments in language that people can understand. And that's a difficult process. And it's not a dumbing down, it's not a simplifying, it's literally a translating. But translations are incredibly difficult to do. And so that was certainly a challenge.
By reading Malcolm Lives, I learned that Malcolm was a young black urban gardener like myself. In what ways does this skill have the potential to help us as a community?
Good question.
So Malcolm gave a speech called Message to the Grassroots. And he gave this speech in Detroit in November of 1963. And in that speech, he talked about land as being the essence of freedom. That a people cannot be free if that people do not have land. And he talked about a number of different revolutions over the course of history in which people engaged in revolution to gain or to retain land. And the reason why he talked about that is because he was contrasting what he called the Black Revolution, which he argued was for land, versus the Negro Revolution.
Teach, bro.
Which he argued was so black folks and white folks can use the same toilet.
Right.
And so he thought the Black Revolution obviously was much more transformative, and the seizing and the gaining of land could be much more freeing for Black people. Yeah. I mentioned that in reference to your question is because if Black people were able to seize land, then what's going to have to come next? Right, Black people are going to have to be able to cultivate and utilize that land, and certainly knowing how to farm. And indeed, Malcolm did farm in Omaha, in Lansing,
I know that.
Michigan.
Oh yeah, yes I did.
All right.
All right. If any way possible, can y'all turn up?
Cheese
Taylin.
Taylin.
Here's why I wish you guys to call him his right name, is because names are the first prophecy over your life. So I wanted to get his name right.
Correct.
Taylin.
Taylin.
That's why I'm taking my time, because I understand and I respect that. Taylin. Can you please turn this mic, because your sister says she can't hear you. Because what I said, they can't hear you. Turn them up, want them to be able to hear you.
Test your mic.
Taste it out, please.
Taylin.
Taylin.
That's right.
Taylin. I'm gonna get it right. I'm gonna get it right.
Taylin.
Sorry about that. Just want to respect his name and make sure I say it correctly, because that's important. All right. Malcolm was a media magnate. If he was alive today, I'm sure he would have over 1 million followers on social media. And Malcolm Lives, you wrote, he returned to the United States with a new outlook on integrating and a new hope for the future. This time, when Malcolm spoke, instead of just preaching to African American, he had a message for all races. This was different from when he spoke about before heading to Mecca. And as a result, there was threats made on his life, for the point he had to have security at all times. Do you think your life is parallel to that of Malcolm? For example, today we all have to go to security for this event, and as well, you have changed your names throughout the years.
So, I mean, unfortunately, in this moment, for those of us who are writing about racism, for those of us who are engaging and organizing against racism, for those of us who are daring to challenge power between the eyes, there's all sorts of threats, that we're facing, just as leaders and activists in previous generations have faced. But frankly, for me, and I know for others, we're commonly inspired by Malcolm, right? Because, Malcolm did not stop. Malcolm did not quiet himself. I'm reminded of the day in which, a few days before he was assassinated, and his house was firebombed. That's right. With him and his girls and his wife in it. And not long after they were out of the house, of course, reporters came to the house and, asked him, okay, so like, are you going to stop now? He's like, no, I'm not stopping.
That's right.
I'm not going to, stop, speaking up and speaking out. And in fact, I'm about to get on a plane and go speak in Detroit.
That's right.
Which is precisely what he did. Betty wasn't happy about that. But I mean, and so for me, it was actually, Malcolm, one of the things that has actually helped me over the last few years, as I've sort of dealt these sort of mounting layers of threats, has been studying and writing about Malcolm. and seeing what he, certainly faced, and more or less seeing his fearlessness. And let me also say that, like, has anybody seen the movie After Earth? It's a movie with Will Smith and his son. You seen that? So in that movie, for those of you who haven't seen it, I'm not going to give it away, but just I'll tell you the general gist. It's actually a really good movie. It didn't really do that well, but Will Smith and his son, his actual son, who plays his son in the movie, essentially is on a planet, and that's not Earth. And there's a beast that is just incredibly vicious on that planet. And Will Smith had already defeated that beast in a prior sort of battle. And he's the only person who had ever defeated that beast. But he's injured. So when they crashed on that island, Will Smith is injured. So he has to sort of teach his son how to defeat the beast. So there's this critical moment in which the son is like, how did you defeat the beast? Like, how did you overcome your fear? And Will Smith says that fear doesn't exist. Fear is a product of our imagination.
Teach, bro.
Now, danger is real.
Right.
But fear is a product of what we think could happen or may happen or may not happen.
That's right.
And so it's largely a product of our imagination. And so once I realized that, Will Smith stated, and this is even the way in which Malcolm thought. Once they realized that fear didn't exist, then they also realized that fear couldn't control them.
That's right.
Fear couldn't stop them. Fear couldn't bound them, and it's certainly not going to stop or bound me.
I like how you said that.
Growing up, Malcolm went through a lot. I couldn't imagine going through a halfway experience. Over the last few years, I participated in a boys mentoring group and STEAM program called Crown Scholars. And learned about self-discipline, opening up your emotions, and asking for help when you aren't okay. Based on your conversations with Malcolm's estate and your research on his teachings, do you think that Malcolm would have been an advocate for mental health awareness, especially for Black boys and men?
Absolutely. Good question, though. Absolutely.
Taylor came up with that question on his own, too.
And let me say, I've been going around the country talking about this book and talking about Malcolm, and I've never received this question. And the reason why it's a good question is because it's something that I wrote a lot about, particularly during Malcolm's youth, right? When he was facing hunger and poverty and his father being killed and his mother being taken away and his siblings being broken up and facing detention homes and people picking on him, it affected him mentally.
That's right.
And so I actually do think that Malcolm would be a huge advocate of mental sort of health services and support for young people, particularly Black boys, because he was one of those boys who needed that support and nobody gave it to him. He didn't really start to sort of, but let me also say his mother was sent to a mental institution.
Yes.
And so he also has a particular relationship with the mental health field. His closest brother, Reginald, was also diagnosed with a mental illness.
Yeah.
And so it actually sort of runs to a certain extent in his family. Yeah. And so I actually think he would be really sort of proud of this type of program.
And the question yet you asked.
This book features Malcolm's private letters and notebooks, some of which have never been published before. Is there any archival material included in this book that really excited you when you found it in the archives?
Yes, so Malcolm befriended a young woman who was one of the leading organizers of a protest at the United Nations after the brutal assassination of Patrice Lumumba in the early 1960s. This woman ended up, like other African Americans at the time, in the early 1960s, becoming more and more alienated from the United States. And so she decided to leave the United States, and she landed in Accra, Ghana, the capital of Ghana. And when Malcolm visited Ghana in 1964, she was part of the welcoming party. Eventually, she would leave Ghana, come back to the United States, become a very famous poet by the name of Maya Angelou. Malcolm has a letter in Malcolm Lives to Maya Angelou.
Yeah. Good one, good piece. Yeah, some folks don't know that.
So Malcolm Lives is accessible and thoughtful biography, which doesn't shy away from the tough reality that was integrated to Malcolm's life, including racism, prejudice, and class. How do you envision this text being used in classroom?
Oh, they don't put it in the classroom.
Yeah, I think there's a number of ways that teachers could use and should use the book in classrooms, whether they're having a unit on the civil rights movement, whether they're writing on the history, I should say, teaching on the history of racism, whether they're teaching about social justice and need a sort of a life story to help sort of share what it means to engage in racial justice work, whether they want to teach students about what it means to be a revolutionary. We're hopefully going to get there one day. School sort of environment. But,
school.
I think there are a number of ways that educators can use the book.
Thank you. Our final, just a moment.
On that note, Dr. Kendi, if you were also asked to deliver a graduation speech to a body of youth that just finished reading your book, Malcolm Lives, what would be the topic of your speech?
So it would actually be something that I mentioned in Malcolm Lives, and that is what it means to be an intellectual.
Wow.
And how I actually define an intellectual, or how I define someone who is smart. I don't consider someone to be an intellectual or even smart because they know a lot of different random facts or they know a lot of different things. To me, I define an intellectual as someone who has a tremendous desire to know.
There you go.
And that desire to know and that willingness to know can be anywhere. So you have intellectuals who are in college campuses. You have intellectuals like Malcolm, who was incarcerated. You have intellectuals who are houseless. You have intellectuals who are in bookstores. Intellectuals can be anywhere.
There you go.
And so I would encourage you to be an intellectual, which is to say I would encourage those youth to have this curiosity to understand yourself in your world. And frankly, Malcolm in particular developed this curiosity to know himself and the world because he realized that the more he knew, the more of a knowledge base he gained, the more he felt he couldn't be controlled. And the more he felt he couldn't be controlled and manipulated by his own ignorance, the more free he became. You know, we're living in a time in which this nation is ruled by somebody who relies on what he calls low information voters.
Come on now.
In other words, he actually wants us to not know.
That's right.
And that's why there's a systematic defunding of schooling.
Books.
That's why there's a constant removal of books.
That's right.
And so it goes to show there's this relationship between mental enslavement and not having a craving to know.
That's right.
That I would want young people to understand.
Good one.
So that they can be free.
Good one. Good one.
Well, thank you for that. So our final question today kind of go back to the other questions. So May is a common time for graduation speech to be delivered during commencement ceremony. If Malcolm X was alive today and was asked to deliver a graduation speech to the body of eighth graders heading to high school, which is around the time his teacher shared with him that he believed that Malcolm X was unable to become a lawyer, what do you think the topic of the speech to the youth would be?
So I actually do think he would narrate that moment. And this is when Malcolm was in eighth grade in a town called Mason, Michigan, which is outside of Lansing, Michigan, which is the state capital of Michigan. Malcolm was sent to Mason, Michigan to live in a detention home there. And that detention home was owned by a white couple who routinely and regularly sort of talked about Black people as like animals in front of Malcolm.
Wow.
Routinely sort of used the N-word. He wrote about how it was as if they didn't even look at me as a human being. Because you know how you have your dog and your cat there and you just be talking all types of stuff about your dog and your cat?
Right. I'm just a human.
And you're like, of course they can't understand me.
Right.
That's the way in which he felt
Wow.
they were relating to him. But in school, he was the school class president.
A student.
He received among the best grades in the school.
Right.
This particular teacher, he actually had the best grades. So he would witness this teacher ask other students, his classmates, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? And those students, almost all of whom were white, would tell the teacher, I want to be a veterinarian. He would encourage them. He would talk to them about how they can do that. Mm-hmm. And he saw that time after time. So then when it was his turn, and the teacher asked him,
sincerely,
what do you want to be? He said, I want to be a lawyer. And that's when the teacher proceeded to tell him that N-word, 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 can never be a lawyer. Like, you're supposed to be a carpenter. And that devastated Malcolm. And he actually writes about, that's when I began to turn inside. And I think in a speech to eighth graders, I think he would narrate that moment and then talk about potentially how he ended up becoming a different type of lawyer. Yeah. Despite what that teacher said. In other words, he became quite possibly the greatest prosecutor of American racism in history.
Question, or you want to go ahead and do the Q&A? It's up to you. All right, so make sure you say it loud and clear so your sister can hear.
Congratulations on joining the Howard University Institute for Advanced Study as an professor of history. Sorry. I understand you will be focused on initiatives related to the African diaspora.
Diaspora. You said it right. Diaspora.
Will aspects of Malcolm lives be a part of the curriculum?
I don't know. I actually haven't gotten that far, but it's likely, potentially.
All right, awesome. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and go to the Q&A questions. So if you have any questions, the doc stories are any particular order or anything, or we just take hands? What's the process? Let us know. Okay, just a few questions, okay?
Yeah, just go ahead and speak loud in my corner and route somewhere. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, go ahead. 3. There it is. Dr. Kendi, you're very purposeful, but you're also very busy. Can you share with us how you are providing self-care to yourself?
Oh, yes. Mental health. Thank you. Good question.
Only a Black woman would answer.
Right.
I was about to say that my wife sent her that.
Right. I love your wife. She's supposed to do that.
So
Tell the truth.
So it certainly is a process. I try to be quite purposeful with my time. And I try to spend, for instance, my mornings writing, my afternoons with meetings, and then, my evenings with my family, and the family in many ways, and just being able to just be in sort of community with my family, of course, is always sort of enriching for me. I have a 2-year-old and a 9-year-old.
Oh, well.
So I'm just another person to them, which I love. But then I also try to exercise. I'm a vegan. I try not to, drink and do other things. But then when I get with my cousins, things change.
Talk about these cousins.
And I also try to sleep.
Okay.
Like, I try to have a regular cadence, of sleep.
That's good.
Very good. Good stuff.
Have you met any of Dr. Malcolm X's daughters?
I have. So this book actually, Malcolm Lives, was done in partnership with the Malcolm X estate, which of course is comprised of Malcolm's daughters. And so that's the reason why I was able to get into the book, these never before seen or published letters and flyers and images of Malcolm X.
That's how you got that.
That's one of the things that I think, we think makes this book official because of this partnership.
Good question.
Dr. Kendi, since the release of Stand from the Beginning, are there any more ideas that you would add to that list of things that you discussed with assimilation and whatnot since that?
Yes, it is. Should I ask him
that?
You trying to get it down.
So, can I share something, but I'll get in trouble for sharing it?
We love that. We ain't gonna say
No,
nothing.
no recording.
No recording.
No face, no case.
So,
Good trouble.
I'm coming out with a book next year. And in many ways, that book is a sequel to Stand from the Beginning.
Okay.
And in many ways, it covers what I sort of describe in that book as what has become the most predominant racist idea of our time. It's an idea that elected officials who are leading nations from the United States to Russia to Hungary to Italy to El Salvador to Argentina, are using to mass manipulate the public to support them. So I can't say more than that.
That's cool.
But it's coming.
Did you have plans or interest in chronicling the lives of other Black persons or activists of color?
What was the question?
I've actually thought about it. I actually really enjoyed in Stand from the Beginning, chronicling W.B. Du Bois's life, particularly his life of ideas, and Angela Davis's as well.
So she might.
At the same time, I haven't necessarily signed or decided to do another type of book like this. It was a tremendous undertaking to try to put this, together. But we'll see in the future.
Any other questions?
Yes, in Malcolm X's autobiography, there was 3 chapters left out, and they were recording Black economic empowerment. Where is that? I've never seen it. Is it in do the daughters have it, or
I can't speak for the Malcolm X estate, but those chapters have been found. I'm not sure when and if there are plans to actually publish them, but those chapters have been found, and indeed, for those of you who aren't familiar, these were pretty radical chapters that really allowed the reader to understand how Malcolm, how thought had ultimately evolved. And, you know, Alex Haley decided not to put these in there. And part of it is, as you know, Malcolm is assassinated before the book is finished.
Yeah, I know.
Right? And so it's hard to know, right, if Malcolm would have lived, whether those chapters would have gotten there. Knowing Malcolm, they probably would have.
My family was messed up in St. Louis.
So, okay, no more questions.
All right, okay.
My business partner, Donna Craddock, is
She told you
seeing
right.
the eye, and so,
She told you right.
yeah. And so before you make a, okay,
She told you right.
before we make a mash dash, because I'm gonna have you go back to the room, but I really want to, Minister Lee Muhammad, I just want to give you a minute. It's Malcolm X birthday. You have been so instrumental to what we do at the bookstore, what happens in the community.
That's
You
right.
have your brothers here today. The FOI, they are always here. And I know. He has been with us. He helped me through. His wife gave me a lifeline when I was on the panel this weekend. Pastor the Greater St. Stephen's. We have Greater St. Stephen's members here too, but I do want to. We have Higher Dominion member back there, and I didn't forget that she got my camera and everything, so she helped me out. So I do, and the Baha'i, we have a Baha'i group that meet here. We got all kind of different groups here.
Do you mind if I tell a story about the fruit of Islam?
Oh, go ahead, we're family.
Boston.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, I'm sorry?
You from Boston?
Oh, yes. So, Malcolm, in 1957, in Harlem, he's the minister of the Harlem Nation of Islam. At the time, there were many different congregations, small congregations, and Malcolm was obviously the minister of his small congregation. And so he was, of course, becoming more and more known within the Nation of Islam, but not necessarily outside of the Nation of Islam. Until in April of 1957, a member of his mosque is brutalized by the police at the intersection of, at the time it was called 125th Street and Lenox. It's now called 125th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard.
That's right.
And so Malcolm is notified that this person by the name of Johnson X was brutalized by the police, and the police brutalized him and beat him in the head so badly that his brain was bleeding. And instead of taking this beaten man to the hospital, they took him to the precinct and put him in a jail cell. So Malcolm again gets word that Brother Johnson, who has been beaten to a pulp, is in a jail cell as opposed to in the hospital. So I'm sure y'all can figure out what Malcolm does. He, of course, goes up to the precinct, but he first organizes the Fruit of Islam. The Fruit of Islam, which was a group of Black men within the nation who had trained in martial arts. So they rode up there all suited like these brothers here, and they literally lined up in military formation outside of the precinct. So then Malcolm goes in and he demands to see Brother Johnson. The police lieutenant is like, what are you talking about? We don't have any Brother Johnson here. So Malcolm is like, look outside your window. So he looks outside the window and he sees the Fruit of Islam. And then behind the Fruit of Islam, there's a growing crowd of Harlemites who had also heard about this beating. And so then the police officer suddenly says, Johnson is here. So he allows Malcolm to go and see Johnson X. So he goes into the cell, sees Johnson X, sees that he's just beaten to a pulp and needs medical attention. So he demands medical attention for Johnson X. He demands that the police in their precinct take him to the hospital. Now, by this time, the crowd is growing larger and larger, and that line of the Fruit of Islam, stoic, quiet, is standing in front of them. So the police are like, okay, we got to send this brother to the hospital. So the hospital is about 12 blocks or so. Harlem Hospital was from the precinct down Lenox Avenue, or what's now called Malcolm X Boulevard. So the car, the sort of ambulance comes, picks up Brother Johnson, starts moving down Lenox Avenue. Malcolm orders the Fruit of Islam to march. So now they start marching down Lenox Avenue behind the ambulance. And so again, by this point, very few people had heard of this Nation of Islam in Harlem. Now everybody.
Yeah.
So people are coming out of the stores. Again, Lenox is like the heart of Harlem. They're coming out of the stores. Who are these brothers walking down the street, in the middle of the street, following this ambulance? And eventually, of course, they reach the hospital. I call this in Malcolm Lives the March on Harlem. And so eventually he is returned back to the precinct. So then they march back to the precinct. And eventually Malcolm realizes that there's not much more that he could do. And by that point, the men are again lined up in military formation outside the precinct. And so then he motions to his brothers to leave. And so a police officer who's standing right there says to a New York Amsterdam News reporter, that's too much power for one man to have. Of course, that's the iconic scene in Spike Lee's movie. But what he's really saying is that's too much power for a black man.
There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go.
This weekend we broke Malcolm down to 4 stages, and that was one of the ones we talked about. So yeah.
And I do want to talk about, I do want to recognize Community Frontline is here. Quentin Phillips, he is out with the school board, and so he was instrumental in making this happen. You guys, we were at a school, I don't know how many students, it was 600, they said it was 600, but I don't know. It was a lot of young people in that school. It was just a lot. But
Today.
huh? Oh, yeah, today at Jaquette Middle School up here next to Dunbar High School. And so, Quentin, thank you very much. Did you have any words or?
Thank you, Dr.
Okay, Minister Lee, we're gonna get you straight down here.
You want you to say a couple words. I'm sorry. Come on. That's what you gave for being a
Well, thank you all for coming out, and let's give our brother, Dr. Kendi, a round of applause for his wonderful work. I do intend to read this. I just want to say Malcolm would have been 100 years old, and like I told them Wednesday, it is impossible to deny the impact of Malcolm, okay? It reminded me of a story that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told Minister Farrakhan one day about in the Bible when Elijah died and a soldier fell down into the grave, and the soldier came back to life and started living again. And he asked him what that meant. It meant that he was still affecting people beyond the grave. So we can never really say that Malcolm is dead.
Come on.
Because Malcolm is still working, he's still influencing people. And as long as we keep his name alive and what he actually taught and what he lived for, then we can infuse a whole new generation to move our people forward. And so we want to thank you, Doctor, for not allowing somebody else to tell our story. We have to tell our writers to tell our story. All right? So thank you, brother. And the Fruit of Islam will be on this stage following you around for the rest of the night. Okay? That's it. Okay, so thank you. That's all I had. Thank you, Donna. Give the Dr. Bookshop a round of applause. Get the book. Read the book. And teach our baby. Thank you.
All right, how we gonna do that?
Okay, Donna's gonna come forward. We're going to let you go back, the team go back in the room so y'all won't watch this transition because it can get kind of ugly sometimes. So, and just debrief and just, if you want your family to come back, you say y'all can come back here if y'all want to.
You know, he's been on, let me just say, he's been on the road for a long time since his tour started. And he's not really turning nobody down. And so the opportunity just to spend a little bit of time with his family, that means so much to us. So while we prepare for our transition, I do thank everybody for their patience. This is so beautiful. We had such an amazing week. And so just celebrating